They held a funeral, a wedding, and a criminal trial for the same man, and he was late to all three. This is the part they Dante put in the law books. The way a hallway can smell like paper and polish in the past. How portraits can stare as if verdicts were out slower than faces. The brass placard says Courtroom B, step in. Take a breath. This is Judge Point, where feelings take the stand and the record finally learns to listen. A small American town, 1944. Silos against a sky the color of forged smoke. Lila Vale rolls bandages in the church basement while the radio lies politely about the war. Her husband, Thomas, writes twice a month from the other side of dawn. He writes about bread that tastes like air, laughter that sounds like it needs a coat. He never writes about fear. Then the letters stop. Weeks buckle into months. The porch light burns like a stubborn prayer. The telegram arrives on a day the tomatoes blush, missing in action, presumed dead. The phrase moves like a blade through a curtain, swift, efficient, unkind. They give him a funeral without a body and call it closure so grief can have a dress code. Lila wears black because it is the proper color for anger, and she practices breathing without apology. 2 years pass. Papers stack. A judge signs the final decree. Thomas Vale is dead in the only way the law knows, on paper. Lila keeps the house, keeps the habit of kindness, and marries Matthew Doyle, a schoolteacher with sawdust on his cuffs and a laugh that falls like rain on hot tar. They do not stop loving Thomas. They learn a trick the law resents, loving the absent while living with the present. Winter, 1953. The sky is scraped bone white. Someone knocks. Lila answers with a spoon in her hand and too much salt in the soup. The spoon falls. Thomas stands on the porch, thin where time took liberties, older where no one asked permission. A scar maps one cheek. Wind and distance cling to his coat. On his finger, a band of gold, the kind that looks older than promises and younger than regret. He steps aside. Sophia emerges from the cab, a coat from another continent. Eyes that have learned to find the exit and the light at the same time. A child peers from behind her skirt, shy as a comma. My wife, Thomas says, and only then hears how sentences can carry two truths like plates you pray not to drop. Sophia met him when he was more rumor than man. They married in a chapel that smelled of oranges and old stone. A priest blessed them. A clerk stamped a seal. Sometimes hunger and hope look identical under ink. Thomas wrote letters home that never crossed the ocean. Poverty is not a season. Ships are not angels. Now he is late to his own life. And the law, oh, the law, hates surprise, because surprise is the cousin of unfairness. The prosecutor, Mr. Fitch, combs his hair like rules comb lives. Bigamy, he declares, as if the word were a clean coin instead of a pocketful of tangled string. Lila sits in the gallery. Her face is a landmark. You navigate by it. Matthew's jaw is clenched. His fist is open. Sophia folds her hands. The child sleeps with the trust of someone who believes adults will tie knots that hold. Thomas's lawyer, Mr. Vega, stands with the quiet air of a man who finds the word human and underlines it without ink. He asks the room to notice the facts that facts bring with them. Declarations of death are sentences the living sign in shaking hands. Good faith is a currency the law accepts when cash fails. He invokes a doctrine not yet settled in this soil, the putative spouse. Mr. Fitch objects. The judge overrules. The jury listens. Thomas is fined, not as penance for malice, but to remind the record that even justified errors dent the wood. The real trial is still ahead. Civil court crowds with quieter stakes. Property, pensions, names on deeds. The items law can hold when breath cannot be filed. Vale versus Vale v. Vale, the clerks joke in the hallway, because humor survives on thin oxygen. Lila brings a shoebox of paper, the declaration of death, the insurance, the decree that let her build a future. The bakery receipt from her second wedding cake. For Lila, written twice, as if repetition could make truth less fragile. Sophia brings a green ledger, neat columns. Rent in 1947, eggs in 1949, 2 entries marked simply blessed when they found a courtyard house, when the boy said Thomas without prompts. It isn't an exhibit the rules anticipate. Matthew brings his silence. The judge, a tall woman with a voice like well-worn leather, listens like listening is a craft. She writes an opinion that is more map than trumpet, receives support, and a share of what good faith built. Matthew remains a husband by embracing a present that refuses to erase the past. No one leaves with everything. The town does not know how to feel. Some understand bridges built while everyone is half asleep, sometimes merge lanes. Children adjust first. In Lila's classroom, a child asks if two truths can fit in one story. Years tessellate into a city. People still come to say, "This is my home. Help me keep it." 1975. Ruth Calhoun and Daniel Reyes have lived together 9 years. Their vows were written in dawn light and grocery lists. What's mine is ours. When love frays, the landlord knows which name unlocks the door. The bank knows which signature opens the account. Ruth brings a box of receipts and a memory of words spoken when people are too tired to lie. Daniel says it was casual, temporary, a thing made of convenience and weather. His face is free of malice and full of a wrong that comes from walking through life with his hands in his pockets. There is no statute for this. Only questions. Did you promise? Did you rely? Did you build? The judge listens for the shift in the air, the moment the law realizes it is being asked to grow ears. She looks familiar, if the light hits just so. Yes, Thomas and Lila's daughter. The girl who grew up in a house with two truths and a ledger that taught mercy. The child who watched Sophia hem wedding dresses the law didn't know how to mend. She pinned her hair with a fountain pen and learned to stack sentences into bridges over gaps other people feared. She does not tell the room any of this. The moment arrives on a scrap of receipt paper. Ruth reads a note Daniel wrote when their child's fever broke. "Whatever we have, I'm in it like a vow." Daniel shrugs. Heat of the moment. Poetry. Nora thinks of a chapel that smelled like oranges. Of a soup salted by grief. Of vows that do not require stained glass to be real. She writes an opinion that does not invent marriage. It acknowledges a promise. It gives it weight. Daniel pays the price of promises broken. Ruth gets to call her work a life and be answered. Not every judgment sings. Some age like milk. The ledger holds winters where doors sealed shut were mistaken for strength. But dissents plant seeds. Footnotes light flares. Later rain arrives. The case that began with a winter knock changes the city quietly. No parade. Just fewer hard words at registers. More room in the grammar of us. Thomas learns listening like a language. Lila keeps teaching. Matthew sands splinters and hums the same tune until happiness becomes habit. Sophia opens a sewing shop that mends futures. The boy grows into a man who says his are softly, marries a reader, and teaches children that a family is not a shape, it's a verb. And Thomas, late to his own life, early to his apologies, dies at home in a chair that finally learned his shape. His will divides dollars, but what it really divides is guilt and gratitude. 3 ways, mathematically impossible and emotionally exact. Nora attends as a daughter, not a judge. She watches forgiveness attempt math the law cannot teach. She realizes the best the law can do is not make it harder. So what ties this ledger together? Not love, exactly. Not even justice. Dignity. The refusal to make people small because their stories do not fit a single frame. The rule that a ring is not a weapon. The habit of counting good faith at the same wage as good paperwork. If someone knocks again, late to their own life, ring catching the light in a way that makes the past and present argue on your porch. Let the law we are building together meet them at the threshold. Let it remember the shoebox and the green ledger, the receipt that read like scripture, the cake with the name written twice, the child who learned to roll an R, and the judge who learned to hear. Let it have teeth where harm is hungry, and gentleness where hearts are healing. Let it be an instrument that plays better with practice, not a mirror that flatters only the strong. They held a funeral, a wedding, and a criminal trial for the same man, and he was late to all 3. What redeemed the absurdity wasn't the story's symmetry. It was what came after. A town that learned a little mercy, a court that learned a better word for promise, a child who grew up to write opinions that helped other children be less lost. That's what justice sounds like when you take the echo out of the room. People leaving softer than they came in, carrying a precedent in their pocket. Not a trophy, not a weapon, directions to a house that stands a little stronger when the next storm arrives.